Hi, KOIN 6 Meteorologist Josh Cozart here with this KOIN Now weather update where we've got a lot to break down. In particular, the active weather happening down towards the southeast as Hurricane Milton takes aim at the western coast of the state of Florida. The Sunshine State already coming off the heels of Hurricane Helene less than 2 weeks ago, so this still remains majorly impactful for much of the southeast as we are expecting to hold on to the potential for tornadoes, storm surge, and also the threat of damaging winds and also a lot of rain for not only Florida but much of the southeast. So let's go ahead, we'll dive into it. I want to go ahead and show you a live look right now just to the bottom of your screen. That is the shoreline courtesy Earth camera there, just showing the waves, the storm surge already starting to make its appearance with our radar and satellite also depicting that the eye wall is nearing the Tampa, Florida area. Now, over the past, I would say 12 hours or so, a lot of the weather models have actually started to push the track just a little bit further south of the Tampa Bay area. That's good news because it's a bay, and that means a lot of water is going to try to funnel its way into a very small channel, creating magnificent and unheard of storm surge, really pushing into that area. So I'll go ahead and kind of zoom in for us here. The winds right now around the center of the eye wall, we'll go ahead and just kind of take a closer look at exactly where things are. 120 miles per hour as it tracks its way to the northeast at about 17 miles per hour. I want to go ahead and turn things back over to our radar just to give you a little bit better of an idea. And I'm going to try and get our arrow here so we can really pinpoint exactly where the worst of this storm potentially is, and that is really going to be in this right quadrant. So that's where the winds are really able to wrap up and around, grab a lot of the storm surge, so the waters of the Gulf of Mexico, and push its way onshore. That's going to be the most devastating area. Again, this is just going to be to the south of the Tampa Bay area and between really Tampa and Fort Myers. That's going to be the major impact. Now, you'll notice we're kind of lacking in the radar department on the backside of the system, and that's not a lack of rain or wind. It's really a lot of our radar sites that are inland are not able to cut through all of the moisture that we are currently seeing. So there is more rain, there is more wind. The brunt of this whole system really around the right quadrant or the southeastern flank of the eye wall that is approaching the shoreline, expected to maybe make landfall within the next several hours, if not even shorter than an hour's worth of time. So that is something that is going to be majorly impactful for us. There you go, a satellite view of now Category 3 storm. So again, the winds around the center of the eye wall right at about 120 miles per hour as it continues its northeasterly track at 17 miles per hour. The pressure dropping to 948 millibars. This is going to be majorly impactful, and it's only about 160 miles south of Helene. You can see Helene's path really just to the north and west of where Hurricane Milton is taking aim. So, of course, Floridians have been evacuating over the past several days, as they should. And with that live camera below us, I have been noticing a few people going out on a lot of the piers and the docks. That is not what people should be doing right now. You need to be moving inland because the brunt of this system is taking aim. You can see the winds. You can see the rain really within the brunt of this system right now at that live view out towards the west coast of the state of Florida and the Gulf of Mexico. Now, this has also been majorly impactful because we are seeing such warm waters. Let me try to pull up our temperature of the water right now. So we're talking about sea surface temperatures nearing anywhere from 80 to 90 degrees, and that is what helps to fuel a lot of this system. So try to get my system to play it out for us here. That's going to be the fuel. So the warm waters, that helps to give some buoyancy to the atmosphere. It's also water, so it's adding moisture to that as well. You can see just to the south of the Yucatan Peninsula there of Mexico where the waters are closer to 90, 95 degrees. So largely impactful. The closer you get to the Gulf of Mexico, that's where temperatures are closer to the 80, 85 degree range. So a lot of fuel to this. The good news is, if there's any good news to be found, is that we saw Helene moved through the area about 2 weeks ago. That helped a lot of upwelling, so that helped to kind of mix up the Gulf of Mexico and drop those sea surface temperatures ever so slightly. So that's the good news to maybe helping drop Milton down to a Category 3 storm right now, as opposed to the Hurricane 5 status that it had been flirting with over the past several days. And this is still majorly impactful. Even a Category 3 storm is a major hurricane. You got to keep in mind the most deadly hurricane on record, Hurricane Katrina, that moved through parts of New Orleans, that was only on landfall as a Category 3 storm. So nothing to bat an eye about as we continue to see Hurricane Milton take aim at much of Florida's coastline just 2 weeks after the devastation seen by Helene. Keep in mind, it's going to be moving those winds back over to areas that have already seen a lot of storm damage. A lot of debris is still laying about. That can likely become airborne in the situation. And it's not the wind, but it's the things and the objects flying in the wind that pose the biggest threat to more destruction and more damage to homes, and also life-threatening as well. So the warm waters, they are still there. I also want to talk about wind shear. So hurricanes, oddly enough, even though they are made up of damaging winds, they don't like to experience winds outside of what they create. So that's the wind shear. We would like to see more wind shear because that would help to kind of break down and weaken Hurricane Milton. Not necessarily the case. So these colors that you're seeing just to the southwest of the center of the eye wall and out towards the Caribbean islands, that's where the wind shear is the greatest. Unfortunately, not impacting the Hurricane Milton area. So that's not necessarily going to be playing into this as we really kind of see it continue to track its way off towards the north and east, again at about 17 miles per hour. So we'll kind of put this into motion, expecting to see landfall here shortly. And this is really, I'm going to just kind of open this up so we can look at it a little bit closer. And if you do have any questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to ask those in the comments below. We are live on Facebook and YouTube as well, and we are always live on KOIN.com with the latest information being fed straight to you. So I want to kind of just dissect this a little bit closer as we zoom in, give us a little bit better of an idea, and get this track out of our way. So it's expected to make landfall just south of the Tampa, Florida area, really by about 8:30 our time here along the west coast. So that means it's going to be dark out towards the Florida area. So unfortunately, that's going to be adding insult to injury. These gusty winds, the dangerous storm surge, all going to be a possibility before it starts to track its way further off to the east. But look, even into tomorrow morning, still expecting it, even after it moves over the Florida peninsula, to remain a Category 1 storm. So still devastating winds, and this is going to take it further out into the Atlantic, where it finally falls back to a tropical storm status and then eventually continues to weaken as it moves over some cooler waters. But again, majorly impactful for us. Again, we'll take another live look at that radar where things are really just firing up across the area. Incredible views of that storm surge. That's the wall of water. You can see it there with those waves moving its way inland, and this is going to be the case throughout the overnight hours, making it extremely difficult to see, moving miles inland potentially, because the storm surge is supposed to be at about 15 feet in some locations. Yeah, 15 feet. So that is definitely going to be washing away, unfortunately, some homes that might be on the beach side as this system continues to move its way onshore. We've also, in addition to the hurricane force winds, we've also got several tornado warnings currently out towards the Fort Pierce area just north of West Palm Beach. That's where we are seeing the outer bands create the potential for tornadoes, and that's something that we have seen develop so far today. Just one of the major images coming in from the National Weather Service out of Miami. Again, these are just part of the outer bands of the tornadic activity that we saw move through the area just earlier today. This one of many tornadoes reported, wedge tornadoes, which are really those kind of massive tornadoes that you see develop out towards places like the Midwest, a sight that we were seeing in parts of Florida today. So you're talking about storm surge, you're talking about flooding rains, flooding conditions from the onslaught of the ocean basically moving inland. But then to add to that, you have the potential for tornadoes, and this is going to even take us past the outer bands. Once the eye wall moves on shore, after we see about 120-mile-per-hour winds, the threat of tornadoes still remains, and that also is going to include likely parts of the Carolinas as this storm weakens, moves its way back out over the Atlantic. So majorly impactful for all of us. I do want to break down exactly what storm surge is. So with a Category 3 storm, that's where we typically see winds of about 111, 129 miles per hour. We typically like to have these in knots, so that's why these numbers are kind of not right on the money. But when you convert it to the miles per hour, it's going to be anywhere from 111 to 129 miles per hour. So those winds are helping to push all of that water from the Gulf of Mexico inland. Not to mention the winds are going to be destructive to the trees, the canopy, really destroying that. And then all of that becomes airborne as well before it starts to tear off shingles and siding. That too becomes airborne, breaking windows and also just acting a bit like a shredder, moving its way over much of the Florida coastline over the next several hours as the eye wall approaches. Now, when we're talking about a Category 4 storm, this does have a history of creating that. You're talking about 130 mile per hour to 156 mile per hour winds. Again, that storm surge only becomes higher. So right now we're forecasting anywhere from about 10 to 15 feet as it continues to move its way inland. So major impacts as far as the flooding goes. And then you have to talk about people who maybe did not heed the warning to evacuate or were unable to. That's where your home can become flooded. People become trapped in their attics, on their roofs. Just hearing some of the horrific stories from Hurricane Helene just 2 weeks ago in the same area, just truly devastating. And all we can do is send our thoughts and prayers for all of the people in the Southeast dealing with this system once more. Now, as far as our weather, to kind of transition things, really going to be talking about that cloud coverage that still remains overhead. 65 degrees, that's where we are currently sitting right here along the Vancouver waterfront. Our 13 Coins tower camera giving us that view as well. Again, kind of a hard switch here, but I do want to talk about the potential for the northern lights once again returning to much of the Pacific Northwest. This has been a sight that many of us have gotten to see as of late. So it's a welcome sight to see something of this magnitude once more. This was just Monday night from you at home. Heading to KOIN.com, under the weather tab, it says your photos. That's where you get an opportunity to share your photos and videos with us, and just truly spectacular sights of the northern lights. This has been something that we really like to see, and has been something that's become a little bit familiar for many of us this far south. A welcome sight to see. So send in those photos and videos. Get those cameras ready to go because of this major solar flare, a coronal mass ejection, a CME, helping to spit the plasma and magnitude, or magnetic energy, I should say, hurtling towards Earth. That's the source of the Aurora Borealis, the northern lights that we've been able to see as of late. This is something very exciting. We're already starting to break down some of that cloud coverage out over the Portland area, but we got to pack our patience. Not necessarily going to be the case for us as we see ourselves really kind of moving through the next several hours. So this is something that we can really kind of keep a close eye on as we work our way into Thursday night. That's going to be our best shot. So there you go. That's where that solar flare happened. We're in the peak of our latest solar cycle, so it's not surprising to see conditions like this. Sending a KP level greater than 8, potentially. We're looking at like 8.3. That gives us a better chance of potentially seeing the northern lights again Thursday night. So where are we heading as far as this potential goes? Likely going to be seeing it south of our area. So this is going to include much of the Pacific Northwest, much of Oregon, much of Washington, all of very real potential. Again, this forecasting is so unpredictable. We know that the energy is there. We know it's coming our way. But will it actually put on a show over the Pacific Northwest, or maybe it'll be over the Great Lakes? Pinpointing that is almost impossible for us. And hopefully with all of this activity, the scientists at NASA, the people who know space weather a little bit more than us meteorologists will get the upper hand and a better understanding of how to predict these and where. So overall, we just kind of got to open up this umbrella and give us a better chance of potentially seeing those northern lights visible over the northern half of the country, and that does include the Portland, Vancouver metro area. Of course, you want to make sure you head out away from the city lights, but it's going to be the cloud coverage that is going to be our biggest deterrent of potentially seeing this view. Again, it's Thursday night. That's our best next chance. After sunset, so we're talking about 8, 9 o'clock, extending all the way into the midnight hour, a very real possibility. That's where you want to look to the northern horizon. That's going to be your best chance. If we get lucky enough, you might be able to actually look overhead and to be able to see the northern lights, but to get away from those city lights. And if you can't necessarily see it with the naked eye, if you've got a smartphone with the long exposure, that's going to be your best chance of potentially picking up on that sight, again, of the northern lights. But dress in layers if you are going to head out to maybe a rural area, because temperatures will be into the 50s, if not even the upper 40s in some locations, especially as you maybe head out towards the wine country area. So something to look forward to. Again, Thursday night, we've got all of those details right now at KOIN.com. As far as our live look goes, beautiful conditions as the sunshine once again returns to the Portland, Vancouver metro area. Downtown looking mighty fine as we have warmed up into the mid-60s. Likely going to kind of keep that mix of the cloud and the sunshine as we move our way through the rest of the day. You can see that cloud coverage slowly starting to break apart after we managed to pick up on maybe a stray raindrop or two. But for the most part, a really nice day finally starting to take shape for us. As far as the impacts go with the Hurricane Milton down towards the southeast, that's where it's really going to kind of stall out a lot of our weather pattern. It's going to keep that ridge of high pressure over much of the country. That's where the warmer weather is through the Great Plains. Mild conditions for us here in the Pacific Northwest. And we do try to push that trough ever so closer to our area, but unfortunately not impacting us until we roll into about the middle of next week. So we kind of stay on this mild and dry weather pattern as finally we start to see Hurricane Milton exit our area. As far as our futurecast goes, seeing the cloud coverage, for the most part, still stay overhead for tonight. Again, northern lights, less than ideal for this evening. But then Thursday, that's where we want to watch the cloud coverage ever so closely. That's where we expect to pick up on a little bit of an easterly breeze out of the northeast. That will likely help us to warm back up into the 70s, above our average for this time of year. We should be hovering in towards the mid to upper 60s for the middle of October, but that won't be the case come Thursday. Maybe a raindrop or two over the foothills of the Cascades, but low impact. And unfortunately, that cloud coverage likely staying with us until about the midnight hour on Friday. We get some clearing, so I don't want to stop you from going out and seeing the lights on Thursday night and a Friday morning, again, close to midnight. You might have the opportunity, but the window of opportunity might only extend for only about 30 minutes. So you got to time it right and keep an eye to the skies. That cloud coverage once again returns for the start of, or I should say Saturday night into Sunday morning. But as far as the cloud coverage goes, not producing significant moisture, a lot of zeros there. As our rain deficit now grows to over 3/10 of an inch here in the Rose City. We've already picked up at about 3/10 of an inch, but we still need to see more. This is typically our 6th wettest month of the year, averaging almost 3.5 inches of rain. So for later this afternoon, expecting our temperatures to get back up into the upper 60s, and then for tonight's forecasts, keeping that cloud coverage for the most part, 48 degrees is where we expect to fall to. And again, just another live look right now at Hurricane Milton. Just truly a spectacular sight to see. Devastating, unfortunately, for our friends down towards the southeast. That's where we expect to pick up really on the brunt of this activity. So this is going to be something that we are talking about not only on KOIN 6 News later tonight, but really for the next several days as that threat still remains across our area. And we'll go ahead and give you that split screen once more. You can see the Earth Cam live view right now along the coastline of Florida, picking up on a lot of that sea spray as the storm surge potentially nears about 15 feet in some cases. So, of course, we'll have the latest updates on KOIN News starting at 4 o'clock. But then we'll also have updates on CBS Evening News with Nora O'Donnell And that's going to be the latest updates with live reports out that direction, as well as the eye wall approaches with wind speeds of 120 miles per hour. A possibility with this as it moves its way in between Tampa and Fort Myers. Again, the brunt of this system is going to be right towards that right quadrant where we've already picked up on some tornadic activity. That will do it for this KOIN Now live edition on Facebook and on YouTube, where you can always get the latest information at KOIN.com. I hope you have a great rest of your Wednesday evening, and we'll leave this live look up for a brief amount of time. Have a good evening.